How did Taylor get on board for this?
Can you introduce us one day? I would.
And be in the actual headline, and it can still be none of my business.
That movie.
Taylor Swift's engagement should have sparked a wall of congratulations, but one voice stayed silent. Blake Lively. No like, no comment. Then a tabloid bomb claimed Taylor might even step back as godmother. If that's real, it's more than a snub. It's a line in the sand. If it's spin, who's pushing it while court filings drag both names into the same storm? Let's pull the thread. Taylor Swift's engagement to Travis Kelce is on record. They announced it in a joint Instagram post on August 26, 2025, and multiple mainstream outlets followed with timeline pieces and sightings afterward. People, magazine also reports they're not in the wedding planning phase yet. They're just celebrating for now. Swift and Blake Lively's friendship is long-standing, and one key detail matters for this story. Taylor is the godmother to the Lively Reynolds kids, as Ryan Reynolds has publicly acknowledged. That's a concrete, on-record fact we can anchor to before we evaluate any revoke chatter. So, the baseline is simple. Engagement, yes. Wedding planning, no. Godmother status, yes. Everything beyond that needs to be measured against actual statements and filings, not just loud headlines. And that raises the next question. What would revoking a godparent role even look like in real life, socially or legally? Engagements usually trigger a cascade of public congrats. Here, the missing message from a longtime friend became the message. Fans read the quiet like a headline, but absence online is not proof of absence offline. People handle milestone news privately first, publicly later, or never. The only thing we can say for sure is that the timeline amplified the gap. A huge announcement, a hyper-online audience watching every refresh, and no visible interaction from someone who used to be front row. That contrast is what lit the fuse. But that wasn't the loudest claim that week. Then came the tabloid line that Taylor might step back from being godmother. On paper, it sounds dramatic, even legalistic. In reality, godparent roles are social and symbolic. They're rooted in trust, not contracts. You can step back from involvement. You can draw boundaries, but there isn't a switch you flip in a courthouse. If a statement like that ever went public, it would be a signal more than a procedure. A boundary drawn, a chapter closed, and 1,000 think pieces in its wake. If it never appears anywhere official, that tells its own story too. And this rumor didn't float in a vacuum. It arrived while Blake had other fires burning. Legal filings create oxygen. Words like deposition, subpoena, and protective order sound explosive even when they're routine. In the past few months, headlines around Blake's separate dispute have pulsed in and out of the news cycle. Allegations got denied, paperwork moved, and blog chatter did what blog chatter does: connect dots that might not belong together. When fans hear that a friend was referenced in documents or asked about in discovery, it's easy to jump from involvement to conflict. But involvement isn't enmity. The safer read is simpler. Legal noise turns every silence into a theory, which leads to the real engine behind this story: optics. In a PR-dense week, the feed becomes a scoreboard. Posts, comments, stories, likes, follows, each one gets graded as a signal. But social platforms aren't truth meters. They're timing and taste and sometimes strategy. Maybe you congratulate by text first. Maybe you wait until the initial frenzy passes. Maybe you don't post at all because any comment becomes the story. The algorithm magnifies whatever is visible and ignores what isn't. That's why a single non-action started carrying more weight than months of public friendship. Strip away the projection and you're left with this: a loud moment, a quiet friend, and a rumor designed to travel. Speaking of which, the war framing didn't help. War Goes Nuclear is excellent copy and terrible context. Commentators, talk shows, and opinion feeds thrive on escalations. Tension becomes feud. Feud becomes war. The louder the label, the further it drifts from anything on the record. What matters isn't the vocabulary. It's whether any principle says or does something concrete. Until then, war is marketing for attention, not evidence. So let's reset the board and separate signal from static. Here's the clean line to work from. The engagement is real. Public wedding planning details are thin by design. The long-standing godmother detail is real because it was stated publicly years ago. The rest, they don't talk. The snub, formal revocation, lives in rumor land unless and until someone goes on the record. That's not as thrilling as a smoking gun screenshot, but it's the difference between a narrative that lasts 24 hours and one that survives a year. And if a single on-record move lands, everything recalibrates in minutes. This story sits on a knife's edge because one visible move from either woman can rewrite months of chatter in a single post. That's the real stake, perception. Both brands are precision built. Loyalty, control, restraint. Anything public will be read as intent, not accident. If a formal step back ever lands, it won't look like paperwork. It will read like clarity. A brief statement, a line about privacy, maybe a quiet note about wanting distance from personal roles being used for headlines. It would be final in tone, minimal in detail, and impossible to walk back. The fallout would be immediate. Headlines frame it as a breach, timelines get pulled apart, and every old photo becomes before. The quieter path is a soft reconciliation, not a sit-down interview, just a simple human touch. A like on a non-controversial post, a short congrats in a story, a group photo at a mutual friends thing. No manifesto, no Q&A. 2 seconds of signal that says we're fine without feeding the machine. That approach kills the feud narrative while keeping all private context private. There's also the middle path, strategic ambiguity. No public snub, no public hug. Life goes on. Each camp focuses on its own calendar, and the story simply runs out of oxygen. It's less satisfying for the internet, but it's often the safest move when legal headlines are buzzing nearby. Ambiguity isn't weakness, it's insulation. What actually moves the needle? 3 kinds of receipts. First, on-record words. A direct quote, even a short one, outranks a week of anonymous sources. Second, observable actions. Follows, unfollows, tags, public appearances. Third, filings, court documents that confirm or collapse key bits of speculation. Everything else is echo. Why the timing matters. An engagement cycle is high-voltage PR. Every interaction is graded. A supportive comment on day 1 says one thing. The same comment 3 weeks later says something different. Silence in the first 48 hours can be read as shade. Silence after the first wave can be read as healthy boundaries. Same action, different meaning depending on when it drops. Risk calculus for both sides is real. A public break risks looking punitive, which can spill into brand narratives about loyalty and friendship. A public embrace risks tethering one person to the other's legal noise at the worst possible moment. Doing nothing risks letting other people define the story for you. There isn't a safe move, only the least costly one in a given week. If the godmother rumor never materializes, it will likely fade the way most single source claims do. Fast. If it does materialize, expect it to be framed as a boundary, not a blow-up. And if the first sign you see is a low-stakes like or a blink and you miss it comment, that's your answer too. Delivered in the smallest unit of internet language. Bottom line, watch for a single decisive signal. Statement, post, or appearance. That's the only thing that flips this narrative from theory to chapter break. Everything else is scenery. Strip away the headlines and the story is smaller, cleaner, and tougher to sensationalize. An engagement the world can see, a friendship with years of public receipts, and a rumor engineered to travel faster than facts. Until someone makes a clear move on the record, statement, post, appearance. Everything else is inference dressed as certainty. If a boundary is drawn publicly, it will read like a finale. If it isn't, expect quiet signals instead. A soft like, a short comment, a shared moment that says more than any exclusive. That's how real relationships surface in public, subtle, not scripted. So the smart read is patience. Watch actions, not adjectives. Let evidence outrun echo. And remember, in weeks like this, strategy often looks like silence, right up until the refresh that changes the narrative in one line. In celebrity stories, silence isn't always shade. Sometimes it's choreography. Big moments attract bigger narratives, and the internet loves a clean villain. But the only thing that changes a story like this is a real move from the people in it. If it comes, you'll see it. If it doesn't, that's an answer too.